Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Monday Musings, Danny and Friends SportsWrap. It's presented by Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. We got some new information from Dr. Woodall on our commercials today, so stay tuned for that. 8 locations all around Kansas City, including a new one in Raytown. So they can make you feel better body, mind, and spirit, and they can do it at many locations that are convenient to you. And they always bring us our Monday Musings. Danny and Friends, our friend today is Jesse Newell from the Kansas City Star. He was down in Jacksonville for the Chiefs Saturday night visit there. There was some good and bad in that, certainly, and the highlight news was definitely the injury to Hollywood Brown. Talk about that and some of the other things as the Chiefs head into the final week of camp at St. Joe. Of course, preseason football is significant, especially in these parts, because the Chiefs are the 2-time defending champion. But heck, it's August, and we got pennant race baseball to talk about. So we've got the Kansas City Royals, a split decision with the Cardinals, but certainly the second game getting that big one and avoiding a bad weekend. A rare Sunday off for them, and then they hit the road now for a big series with the Minnesota Twins. We'll talk about that and take you all around baseball, because the baseball roundup is more important. It was a weekend where a lot of the teams that the Royals are vying with were playing each other. So there was a mixed bag there as well. The Olympics wrapped up. I've been kind of immersed in that as well. All kinds of other things to talk about today on Monday Musings. Danny and Friends SportsWrap. It's presented by Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
It's always a pleasure to catch up with Dr. Brad Woodall from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. There are 8 locations all around Kansas City, including the newest one in Raytown.
In Raytown, we just joined Raytown July 1st. We took over for a retiring doctor, Dr. David Frey, and we are just honored to see all of his patients and take care of the Raytown community.
And communities all around Kansas City with the best of care in a wide variety of fashions.
We do chiropractic using multiple techniques: acupuncture, disc decompression therapy, cold laser therapy, different physiotherapies, exercises, whatever you need for your bones, muscles, joints, and nerve pain, we can help.
Find that help at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, 8 locations all around Kansas City. Visit ASFCA.com.
Did you experience hail damage last year and never got the work done? Most insurance companies only give you a year to get the roof fixed. And if you don't get it done, you could possibly not be compensated in full for the replacement of your roof. If you've been procrastinating getting that damaged roof taken care of, give us a call at 913-257-5426, and we'll send out an expert to help you through the process. We're never pushy, we're just here to help. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you.
Welcome back, and it's time to get a boots-on-the-ground view of last night's Chiefs-Jaguars preseason opener with Jesse Newell from the Kansas City Star. He does great work there. A lot of video analysis, just a lot of good stuff. He's always been a long time. Great writer in Lawrence and Kansas City. It's always a pleasure to speak with him. And quick in and out to Jacksonville. And I would say maybe on the whole, Jesse, that for better, for worse, this game was maybe a little bit more intriguing from a news standpoint than many preseason openers.
Yeah, not for good reasons for the Chiefs, obviously, just because of the Hollywood Brown situation. Hollywood's been a guy in his career, basically every single season has dealt with some sort of injury, not feeling 100% or battling through something. And sure enough, his first snap, he suffers a serious injury that Andy Reid afterwards tells Arsene McDowell in the press conference is, the same injury that Tyreek Hill had back in 2019 when he missed, 5 games in the season, actually missed the rest of his first game and then 4 more games after that. So it's a blow for the Chiefs. Obviously, that's not the news you want coming out of any preseason game. You'd like to come out of it healthy, but that particular injury and how it happened and how it potentially harms this Chiefs offense is a big storyline from the first game. And, we can talk about the other things that happened and some good things, some bad things, and some guys emerging, all those sorts of things. But I think that does take precedence because it definitely could be a significant thing that impacts the offense, especially here in the first month.
This kind of thing can happen in practice. It can happen anytime, but it's probably just another sign to those around the league who never play anybody in the preseason that they're doing the right thing, even though the Chiefs always do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I know Patrick Mahomes kind of jokes around when he says he goes in, he wants to get hit one time, but like not that hard, but feel full contact. And training camp isn't full contact.
Right.
Most of the time, those guys, even if they're in pads, they're staying on their feet. They're not completely hitting each other like the olden days of football because they do want to stay healthy. And then the impact of this, or potentially looking at this from the big picture, is Andy Reid has a way that he does things. He likes the way he does them, and the Chiefs win Super Bowls every year. So it sort of is hard to look at this and say, well, he's not doing the right thing, or they're beat up down the stretch, or they have too many injuries. I mean, if all those things were the case, then the Chiefs wouldn't be as successful as they have been here in the past couple of years. But yeah, this is an unfortunate thing because I think you look around the landscape of the NFL, and I was paying attention to some of the other games, but you really don't hear much out of preseason games in terms of injuries or severe injuries or serious injuries. And so this Hollywood Brown one really did kind of steal the news of yesterday because of what happened. And you said, Danny, I mean, it can happen on a lot of different things. And there's a lot of guys get hurt in training camp practices too. So you can't completely wrap these guys in bubble wrap. And Hollywood Brown obviously has a history of this coming into it. But it is unfortunate for the Chiefs because they were going to rely on him to fill a hole in their offense that was there from a season ago, even when they did win the Super Bowl. And so they're going to have to kind of manage without him until they get him back. I'm sure they hope to get him back sometime in September, but that might be an optimistic timeline based off these injuries in the past.
Well, the first team offense got probably what they wanted, except for that injury, out of what they did. They had a scoring drive. They had got Harrison Buckner into action with a field goal on a significant first drive. Patrick Mahomes completed 3 or 4. They had a couple of chunk plays. They had a big run. So I guess they probably got what they wanted out of that first drive.
Yeah, I think so. Again, you're looking at certain pieces, and we kind of joke about this. I've talked with people about it, that this is what you want if you are an NFL team's fan, which is there's not a bunch of position battles. There's not a bunch of intrigue in these preseason games because your roster's set. You have security up and down the roster. So really the one question maybe going in on offense would have been Kingsley Suamataia at the left tackle. I mean, he's been winning this competition from day one, basically in training camp when he got subbed to the first team. The other guy in the competition, Wanya Morris, sat out with a right knee injury. So, again, not a true fair competition. But Kingsley got the starter's treatment. He looked like he held up pretty well in the pass protection. A couple snaps he was in there. And then after the first series, he was out. It wasn't like, oh, let's get him 3 or 4 series, get his, get him going in the NFL, see what he can do, maybe get him, accustomed to this. It was more like, no, the Chiefs are going to rely on this guy. So don't get him injured, get him out of the game and get him out of there early. So I think that's probably the most encouraging thing from the first team was, Kingsley doing fine, doing good. And then again, for Andy Reid and the coaching staff basically say, you're one of the guys, you got to come out now because you're going to be banked upon here this season. So it is crazy. The Chiefs they're going to roll out a rookie left tackle in game 1 and going off of 2 straight Super Bowls. And this is, I know Sam McDowell, my colleague, has kind of looked this up and researched it, and it's very, very rare for teams to have a rookie left tackle if they're trying to win football games, right now. But they like Kingsley, they like what he brings, they like his athleticism, and obviously he's had a good growing curve here in camp. So it looks like they're going to roll with him, and it'll be a fascinating storyline to track this whole season. I thought day 1 went pretty well for him.
The Jags kept their starters in a little bit longer, and they kind of took advantage of the Chiefs. They moved the ball pretty well. Chiefs had several defenders who were banged up in camp, as you mentioned. That can happen, too. Chris Brown didn't play. Chris Jones didn't play, obviously, and so there were a couple other guys who didn't. But, throughout camp, Steve Spagnuolo has talked about people stepping up at the cornerback position, and I don't think this game probably put a smile on his face from that regard.
No, probably not, but it's tough because, just like you said, Danny, there's been these injuries and these nagging ones that kind of keep coming back. And so the competition for cornerback 2 next to Trent McDuffie has kind of just been Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, and Najee Johnson. Well, Jalen Watson is working his way back from a torn labrum. Najee Johnson working his way back from a torn ACL. And those guys have kind of popped in and out of practice. And so neither of those guys played yesterday. And that's difficult. It's hard to, okay, which of these 3 are you going to pick? Well, only one of those guys is out there, and Joshua Williams. He had a nice pass breakup on 1 down, and then a couple of plays later got beat deep. I did look at his Pro Football Focus grade for what it was worth. He was ranked as one of the top 5 defenders on the Chiefs. He can come down, he can tackle. He's very physical in the run game, those sorts of things. Obviously, like I said, got beat on the coverage one time downfield. So to be determined on that one for sure. I know Steve Spagnuolo has loved Najee Johnson ever since last year when he was going to be the projected third cornerback for the Chiefs and towards ACL in training camp. He was projected he was going to be a starter out there in the nickel package, and then had the unfortunate injury. And then Jalen Watson has made some big plays for the Chiefs too. So that one will be a battle continuing. And like I said, I mean, the Chiefs don't have any of these. It's left tackle, which has basically been decided. Then the second cornerback spot, which they're up in the air on and want somebody to emerge. So I didn't think it was a horrible performance for Josh Williams. It's just the competition wasn't out there for him, and potentially we'll see a little bit more of that in games 2 and in games 3 as Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson get back on the field.
Well, we got to see the NFL kickoff rule in full flower. We got to see the question marks. We got to see a big return, which is what they're looking for. All in all, it probably wasn't a good night, although it probably wasn't a good night for the officials. We still probably don't know exactly what went on that safety. But go through the special teams aspect of it from last night.
Yeah, the McCall safety is a fascinating one because last year, if the ball hit the end zone, it would just be a dead ball. And now you have to return it, but there's also kind of this caveat where it's like if the ball hits the end zone and you down it, it's a touchback. Otherwise, it has to hit the target zone, which is between the 20-yard line and the end zone. And that ball kind of did the opposite. It went to the end zone, but then bounced in the field of play. So I think there's going to have to be some clarification from the NFL because last night, Sam McDowell talked to Andy Reid to get clarification. He said, absolutely, that's not the right call. It should have been a touchback. And then I was reading Doug Peterson quotes from his time at the podium, and he was basically saying, absolutely, it was the right call. Right. So this is why you have this in the preseason, is to kind of get all these kinks out and figure out exactly what the rule is so everybody can proceed going forward. The Chiefs gave up a couple of the big kickoff returns. I think that's okay because they wanted to test it, and the Jaguars kicked some touchbacks, which was to me I would almost think you'd have like a handshake agreement from special teams coaches, just say, hey, it's the preseason. Let's work on this. Let's try to see what everybody has in this regard. But for the Chiefs, I have a hot take on this, and I tweeted out about it a week ago, and I stand true to it. I really think that the Chiefs, when it's all said and done and they look at this thing and they weigh the pros and cons, I think they're going to go back to kicking the ball through the end zone with Harrison Butker. For one, he can do it. And for two, the penalty is only the 30-yard line this year. If the NFL really wanted to incentivize returns, a kickoff through the end zone or straight into the end zone has to go out to the 35 or the 40 to make teams want to do kickoff return coverage. Right now, I mean, you see how it goes. It's really difficult for teams to not get the ball to the 26, 27, 28-yard line on normal kicks. And so are you going to risk potential return for touchdown, a penalty, all those sorts of things to try to gain yourself 2 or 3 yards? I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. So I think the Chiefs will continue testing this in preseason, but I would not be surprised if very early in the season you're going to see what you saw last year, which is Harrison Butker and a lot of other NFL teams, NFL kickers, kicking the ball through the end zone and saying, hey, NFL, if you want to really bring this return back, you're going to have to make it a little bit more penalizing if you're going to kick the ball through the end zone.
Well, we always try to get some outside-the-box stars, and Carson Steele, who has a name that certainly works in a variety of things, law enforcement, the military, and football, I would say, probably, or 3 of them. He had a nice game, and do you think he actually has done enough? He's a fullback by listed position, but he was a running back in college, and he ran the ball effectively. Could he be pushing somebody out of the mix here?
It was a great outing by him. He had that one run where he broke 3 tackles. And if you saw the Chiefs' first depth chart, too, you don't take too much from that. But they actually, made the fullback position and put him in there to kind of signify that, he's come along. And you could see in training camp, he was, fourth string at best early on, and he's elevated his way up. I mean, you can see when guys start to get third string reps and go in there. For him, it was, kind of right behind Isaiah Pacheco, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been in and out of practice, and then Deneric Prince has run right after that. So there were days he was getting, Carson Steele was getting reps with the 3s, and so they seem to like him, and they seem to think he can do, more than just the fullback stuff. He obviously can run the football. He could play special teams for you, those sorts of things. So probably too soon to say he's bumped somebody else out of there, and they have some interesting decisions to make with that position because that's also the position for Louis Rees-Zammit, who did some nice things on special teams, but is just so raw because, he's making the transition from rugby. The question mark becomes if you cut him, if somebody else picks him up, not only for, the athleticism value that he brings and potentially special teams, but also sort of the brand